I call the October 10th, 2023 regular Planning and Zoning Commission meeting to order at 7 p.m. Roll call. Call each Commissioner Holman. Here. Commissioner Barrow.
Here.
Commissioner Smith.
Here.
Commissioner Martinez.
Here.
Commissioner Michelson here. Let the record reflect that a quorum is present for the meeting. Administrator Simon, are there any changes to the agenda?
Commissioner Michelson, no.
Okay, there are currently no changes. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll move approval of the agenda.
Second.
Commissioner Holman moved to approve. Commissioner Barrow seconded the motion. Roll call vote. Commissioner Holman?
Yes.
Commissioner Barrow?
Yes.
Commissioner Smith?
Yes.
Commissioner Martinez?
Yes.
Commissioner Michelson, yes. The motion carries unanimously. This is the public comment period. Residents may address the Planning and Zoning Commission to comment on issues, problems, or successes on topics that do not appear elsewhere on the agenda. Audience members will be given an opportunity to comment on agenda items as they come up. Speakers must register with the village staff prior to the beginning of the meeting. I have a list of the one person who signed up to speak. Please come to the podium as your name is called. Camille Voltes. Varos, sorry. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. I never know how to deal with that. Good evening, Camille Vados, 427 El Paraíso Road, Los Ranchos. Thank you, Commissioners, Chairman, for being here, staff, P&Z staff, our administrator, and Simon, and our legal counsel, Ms. Winters. Thank you. Anyway, I had brought up with our mayor, Don Lopez, I don't know if there's been any discussion about no parking in our village once our oversized development has been close to completion, because there is a concern that if there's not enough parking, that they're going to, participants or other people coming to the village center establishments, that they're going to be parking wherever they find space. And where is that going to be? Probably in the neighborhoods. So I had requested that there be no parking in the beginning of our residential streets. That would deter, hopefully, no parking there. And also that I've noticed that trucks, because I get up early and I'm in my yard and I observe that there are landscape
The speaker's time
trucks.
has expired. Please finish your final thoughts. You have 10 seconds.
Well, I just want to complete this one last comment, that there's landscape trucks with their heavy equipment attached on a trailer coming through our streets. And
The speaker's time has expired.
anyway, I would hope that could be monitored. And thank you.
Thank you. We have no other people signed up to talk on general, is there anyone else who wants to come up and speak? Kiko, do you have any members of the public signed up to speak, joining us online?
There's nobody online.
Okay, we're moving to the consent agenda. All matters listed under the consent agenda are considered to be routine and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items. If discussion is desired, that item will be removed from the consent agenda and will be considered separately. Item A, approval of the minutes, August 8th, 2023. Are there any corrections or comments from the commissioners? Is there a motion to approve the minutes for August 8th, 2023 regular meeting?
Yes, I move we approve the minutes for August 8th, 2023, regular meeting.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Commissioner Barrow has moved and Commissioner Smith has seconded. There'll be a roll call vote. Commissioner Holman,
Aye.
Commissioner Barrow,
Aye.
Commissioner Smith,
Yes.
Commissioner Martinez,
Yes.
Commissioner Michelson, yes. The motion carries unanimously. Public hearings and applications. Will all those who will be speaking before the commission tonight please stand up to be sworn in? This is for all public hearings and applications on the agenda. If you will be speaking on any of these public hearings and applications, please stand.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth? Thank you.
Okay, we'll move to item A, V 2306, a request by Allen and Marcia Leatherwood for a variance from 9.2.7 E2A2, requiring a 15-foot side setback in the A1 zone in the Guadalupe Trail character area. The property is zoned A1 and is located at 1007 El Pueblo Northwest, Los Ranchos, New Mexico, 87107. It is legally known as a certain tract of land being and comprising the easterly portion of tract numbered 34A2 as shown and designated on the MRGCD property map number 24, tract D, lands of Leatherwood and Whipple, situated within the village of Los Ranchos de Albuquerque and contains 3.0365 acres more or less. Are there any commissioners who will recuse themselves from this item? Mr. Williams, may we have the planning report?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, good evening. Some of you I have met, some of you I have not. My name is Brennan Williams, serving as the acting P&Z staff in the director's absence, and will be presenting the two variance requests tonight. Mr. Chairman, as you mentioned, item 4A, the property owner is requesting a variance of 5 feet to the required 15-foot side yard setback distance. Some pertinent background on this request: the existing property is just over 3 acres in area, 3.03 acres. The existing tract, single tract, used to be 2 separate parcels. And according to the applicant, these lots were combined as one lot back in 1989. The current development that exists on the property includes a single-family dwelling and a barn. The applicant is now proposing to re-subdivide or go back to the 2 lots as they existed prior to the consolidation. One lot will be 2 acres in area, and the second lot will be the remainder, 1.03 acres in area. Both of these lots, at least as they're proposed now, I realize it's a separate process, but both of these lots will meet the area size and width requirements for the A1 zone. But because the future lot split will create a new property line, that property line which is a side property line, will be just 10 feet from the barn rather than the 15 feet which is required by the code. So as outlined in section 9.225E of the Comprehensive Zoning Code, staff has reviewed the submitted materials and has concluded that the subject parcel is exceptional by reason of its physical characteristics. There are relevant factors that are associated with the property to justify giving proper weight to the interest of the property owner in the village, and the proposal will meet the intent and the purpose of the master plan and the zoning code. And finally, that the general principles applicable to all variances have been met for this request. Staff is recommending approval. This matter was properly noticed. There were no comments either for or against this particular request that were received by the village clerk. No comments were received. As I mentioned, the department recommends approval. The findings and conditions for that are listed on page 18 of your packet. Mr. Chairman, I'll stand for any questions.
Are there any questions for Mr. Williams from the commissioners?
No, sir.
Is the applicant present? Please come up, state your name and address for the record.
Marcia Leatherwood, 1007 El Pueblo Road, Northwest.
Would you like to speak about your application?
Excellent job summing up.
Could you speak into the microphone?
Do you want me to start over from the beginning? Oh, okay.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Yes?
Yes.
Marcia Leatherwood, 1007 El Pueblo Road, Northwest, Los Ranchos. And the gentleman summed up the issues very well.
Are there any questions from the commissioners for the applicant? There's no list of anyone signed up to speak in favor or opposed to this item. Is there anyone joining us online? Are there any further comments from the commission?
No, Mr. Chairman, I would move approval of V 23-06.
Is there a second?
Yes, second.
Commissioner Holman has moved to approve. Commissioner Barrow has seconded. I'll call a roll call vote. Commissioner Holman,
Yes.
Commissioner Barrow,
Yes.
Commissioner Smith,
Yes.
Commissioner Martinez,
Yes.
Commissioner Michelson, yes. The motion carries unanimously. Let the record show that the public hearing, item 4A, the request by Allen and Marcia Leatherwood for approval of a variance is formally closed. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Move to item B, V2307, a request by Eric Huter for a variance from 9.211 E2A, requiring a 10-foot setback, side setback, and 15-foot rear setback in the R3 zone in the 4th Street character area. The property is zoned R3 and is located at 334 Pueblo Solano Northwest, Los Ranchos, New Mexico, 87107. It is legally known as lot numbered 36 of the Varinka Addition, a subdivision of attractive land in School District Number 22, Bernalillo County, New Mexico, as the same is shown and designated on the map of said addition filed in the office of the County Clerk of Bernalillo County, New Mexico on January 9th, 1946. Are there any commissioners who will recuse himself from this item? Mr. Williams, may we have the planning report?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, V2307, item number 4B on the agenda, is a request, two separate requests by the property owner seeking two variances for the subject property. The first variance is of 5 feet to the required 10-foot side yard setback distance. The second is a variance of 5 feet to the required 15-foot rear yard setback distance for the subject site. Current development on the property includes a single-family dwelling, as well as an accessory building and a swimming pool in the rear yard. And the applicant is proposing to remove or demolish the existing accessory building in the rear yard and replace it with a larger, what's described as a garage/storage building or accessory structure. As outlined in the written justification, the owner states that the existing driveway along the east side of the property necessitates the proposed building, to be placed in its proposed location. Indicates that the lot is irregular in shape, which doesn't allow the building to be placed on the property without encroachment in either the rear or the side setback area. And that the proposed location of the building will preserve existing vegetation on the property and will adhere to the design characteristics in the neighborhood. Staff has reviewed and analyzed the materials that have been presented, and staff has determined that the request does not meet the applicable criteria for approval. Specifically, staff has concluded that the requests are not in conformance with the goals and policies of the master plan, that the subject site does not possess special conditions which create an unnecessary hardship associated with the property, and that there appears to be sufficient area in the rear yard to allow the placement of the proposed building without encroachment into the required side and rear yard setback areas, and that the requests are contrary to the public interest. These requests were properly noticed. The village did not receive comments during the posting period, but the village clerk did receive an email in support of the requests this past Saturday. I have copies of those if you'd like me to disseminate those to you or read those into the record. As listed on page 49 of the packet, as I mentioned, the department is recommending denial of the variances. Mr. Chairman, I stand for any questions.
Are there any questions from the commission for Mr. Williams? Is the applicant present? Please come forward, state your name and address.
Good evening.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Eric Hutter, reside at 334 Pueblo Solana. And I would like to start by kind of catching back up on where we are now. Maybe I'll take me over here. So since September, when we first applied, I have now met with my draftsperson and an architect. We've decided to reconfigure the location of the garage. So we're no longer requesting a variance from the side setback at all. I have had a stake survey done, which was actually finally completed today. It took 6 weeks to find all the corners of the properties, but they've now been located and found. Pictures are present. I've also got some pictures available here. So our original plan was to set the rear wall of the garage parallel to the rear property line. As you can see, it's irregular in shape. There's only access to the backyard down the east fence line, and it's directly parallel to the fence. There's only 10-foot access between the front portion of the house here and the side east portion of the fence and property line. So there is no other access or egress to the backyard. So this is the only driveway access point. So we decided to now set the building parallel to the east property line, now conforming to the 10-foot side setback, so we don't need that anymore. Split the difference in the rear at 18 feet in this corner, which allows us to only have an encroachment in this back far south corner of the garage by 5 feet. Today, when we set the stakes for the stake survey, and they came out and finished that, I don't have a completed drawing, but I do have a preliminary drawing of it here. We laid all of this out based off of the fence lines. As it turns out, this fence line is 2 feet inside my property line, negating that. This fence line is also 2 feet inside my property line. So where I was requesting variance here is now actually even less of a variance. It's really only this back corner of the shop, and we're talking somewhere between 10 and 11 feet at this point. So there are pictures, probably as well in your packet. Here's the stake survey of the back corner. This is the stake set today. It's got an actual stake with cap, all recorded. This is my fence line here. This is the back side of the wall. Here's what it looks like looking across the back from the vacant lot that is east of my property. Here's your stake. There's the wall that was constructed by the people who live behind me, which is 2 feet onto my property line, also including encroachment by all existing buildings onto that property. That is the valid cap set today by Harris Surveying. This is access, looking towards the north in my backyard. This is the driveway set parallel along to that. All mature vegetation to the west of that driveway access. This driveway access gate here is at 12 feet. So that shows just how tight that house is to there. Apologize because it's crooked, it couldn't be turned. At least not with the technology I possess. So this is the fence line running along that east side that we've now determined is actually 2 feet into the property line. So that buys us, we originally drew at 5 feet, setting parallel. Now we're at 10. Now I'm actually at 12 feet on that side. So there is no more need for side variance. This is the vegetation concern, kind of a picture of the tree actually growing into the shop that will be torn down at this point. There was stated that there's a swimming pool there. It is an above-ground pool, and it is being removed before the building goes up. So it's not necessarily a pool. It was a dock diving and training facility for dogs. This is a photograph kind of for scale with my trailer parked along the fence line, showing the edge of the driveway, and that there's only about an additional 8 feet there to be able to even squeeze through. After talking to the architects, we were hoping to put in a 2-car garage door. That's why we wanted the 5-foot side variance. We're down to a 10 by 10 garage door now, and the closest I can get to the edge of that building by code is 18 inches. So that garage door is 18 inches now set off of the edge of that building. So that's what's going to allow us to get in there. The length of the building can't be changed because we only are able to get that 1-car garage door. So I can only get 2 vehicles bumper to bumper in there, and that's it, and be able to close the door. So I still need that rear variance for rear setback. Here's another picture looking towards the east, showing the gate situated along the north side, some mature vegetation, and 6,000 square feet, essentially in this area of existing turf. Anybody have any questions?
I want to ask, Mr. Williams, have you had a chance to look at or evaluate these changes versus what was originally proposed?
Mr. Chairman, no, sir. This is the first time, like the commission, staff's hearing about this.
I literally took 6 weeks to get the stake survey done because they couldn't find any pins in our area. So a lot of this really came to light today.
All right, so.
The side variance stuff had been discussed over the last month.
So you're saying that the variance along that property line is no longer
The
required?
variance along the east property line is no longer required.
And
no,
on
sir.
the end, it's just a small triangle?
On the rear setback, it's just this small triangle of the back corner of the building.
Are there any other questions from the commissioners?
Yes. Have you notified your neighbors of this change?
Yes, actually, if you look at, I believe it's the 3rd page in your packet.
Okay.
Every adjoining property, I believe there's 6 or 7 of them with the exception of the vacant lot, have been notified, agreed to, and signed off on my letter of intent.
Okay. And do you have any plans to change the fencing? so that it's actually on the property line? Or are you just going to
At
leave it
this
as it
point,
is?
I don't necessarily. The back, definitely not, because that means we're gonna have to move neighbors' buildings and do all kinds of things like that. If I needed to change the side, I could, but at this point, it's built. There's not much need to do that.
Can you tell me, please, your corner there, what is the amount? How many feet variance are you asking for just on that corner?
In this back corner,
Low corner down?
Here?
Yeah.
so I was asking for 5 feet, and now with the stake survey, it runs at an odd angle, kind of starts on the property line here, ends in this corner. We're probably looking somewhere around 13 to 15 inches for argument's sake. I mean, so on the building itself, I'm going to be encroaching by approximately 3 feet in that rear corner.
Okay. I have a question for Mr. Williams. Does this alter your recommendation on V2307?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Barrow, the short answer would be no. Staff is still of the opinion that it doesn't meet the specific criteria for approval as outlined in the code and the ordinance. You know, the new measurements, while they may be less than, or the variances requested may now be less than what was previously requested, staff is still of the opinion that it doesn't meet the threshold for approval, for consideration of approval.
Thank you.
I have another question.
Yeah.
Is there a utility easement along that back? And if so, where does it lie?
What there is across the back, you'll see here, there's a 5-foot ditch easement for a ditch that was backfilled when the properties were subdivided back in the 50s or 60s, whenever that was. There are utilities back there, but as far as any of the drawings that have come to light, all of the checking with the county and what they did today for survey, there are no utility easements back there. There's no alley access, there's no nothing like that.
I have a question.
Sure.
Again, what we're asking here, and you just asked it, if there is a 15-foot easement back there, and you're defining that there is not a 15-foot easement as per your surveyor?
As per what we're looking at, what we're talking about is our 15-foot setback.
Okay,
I mean,
okay.
that's because there's an easement on every property at 15 feet is the way I understand that. So as far as a specific utility easement, like as far as an alleyway or anything like that, there's no access, and there never really would be, because of the way all the adjoining structures and yards are laid out, there's no way to get back there anyhow. So as far as like accessibility for utility companies and equipment and trucks like that, there isn't any, no, and there wouldn't have been. So as far as blocking access to be able to maintain utility lines and things like that, no. All of the utilities that come into the property come down this east fence line, and everything else comes out of the street on the north side of Pueblo Solano.
So correct me, there is actually no utilities on that back side whatsoever?
This
No-
backside
yes,
here,
no
you
power
can see here,
poles,
this is a power pole here.
There's power poles.
And it's actually in the adjoining properties behind me.
And is that overhead lines from, is your bottom property, is that north and south or east and west?
This here is
Yes.
east and west.
Okay, is there power lines on that power pole,
Yes,
east and
this
west?
is power lines that run across into the adjoining properties.
Okay.
Continuing with that same line of questioning, do we know for a fact there's no natural gas line?
We know for a fact there's no natural gas. It all comes off of Pueblo Solano and terminates here.
Okay,
All of the water, sewer, gas, everything else, at least on my property and the neighbor's property, come down the east line. And then there are power lines behind the property on the adjoining properties behind, on the south side of my house.
And the requirement for the going into the easement or into the area in the back is because the garage will be made perpendicular rather
Yes.
than,
Yeah, so I'm going to be parallel with the east fence line. So that's what kicks that back corner in. This back corner is really odd, and it's hard to explain without actually standing back there how awkward it is. But you have essentially a 10-foot driveway coming back. The further forward I go and I try to maintain side setback, the further this way it pushes it and causes further encroachment. So if I can go further towards the east, then it lessens the rear. If I go further to the back, then it lessens the side. So we narrowed the building up. Our original dimensions were going to be in the 42-foot range, so we had to narrow the building up so that we can meet the side setback and go to a 10-foot door. And that just left us with this back corner of encroachment.
Mr. Williams, so this new building setback is different than what you evaluated?
Mr. Chairman, yes, but it's less, if I'm understanding correctly. The need for a variance, according to the applicant, is less than it was previously. So he's working in the right direction, but he's still, at least based on his testimony, he's still in the rear yard setback area.
This is true.
So if you'll repeat it one more time, the 15-foot easement or the 15-foot setback now, the variance is going to change because at this point in time, the whole packet changes because there is no side setback.
Yeah, we're
And
no
I
longer
guess
seeking
the
side
question that I would ask, does it make more sense to go, is it critical to get a decision tonight, number one? And would it make more sense to go back and reappropriate exactly what's transpiring now and maybe getting a different result?
To be honest, I mean, we looked at doing this last month.
Okay.
I've made all of the necessary concessions I can as far as scaling down the size of the building, relocating the building on the property. So I'm basically at what I can do and still be able to get what I necessarily need on the property so that I continue to live there. So, I mean, we could reapply with our current findings, but it sounds like it's not going to change anything based off of our discussion tonight.
And so my question that wasn't answered, instead of 15-foot setback, you're getting a variance for how much?
12 feet essentially at this point because of the way that the stake survey came out.
So I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead.
It would essentially, it would negate the 10 feet on the side. So we would cancel that.
Mm-hmm.
And in the rear, it would be a 12-foot setback.
In the rear, I'm essentially looking for a 12-foot setback at this point, yeah.
And that area in the back was formerly a ditch and is now
Yeah,
not
it's all-
used for anything.
Exactly. This is what it looks like now. This is looking towards my property. This is the back of the block wall in question. And if you actually look towards, I think it's either the second to last or the last page in your package, there's going to be kind of a collage, if you will, of photographs looking to the west from the vacant lot that sits directly east of the back half of my property. And you can see that there was never any access there for some of those things. There was never going to be a ditch. The ditch would actually have to cross. They'd have to run along the side of Pueblo Solano where it makes the curve, right in this area here. And then it would have to go through all of those properties that adjoin on Del Acre. So there was never any possibility of doing that in the first place.
Mr. Chairman, I have another question. So what is preventing you from, instead of squaring up with the side, flip it back if you would, please. Instead of squaring the building up with the side property line with that 15-foot perpendicular line from the rear?
We're talking about squaring up down here.
Why can't you
So
square it up
if I
there?
square up down here, we end up taking out a lot of vegetation that's been existing. It just that doesn't constitute living in the valley. If I square up that direction and I bring parallel to the back wall with the back wall of the shop and match that with the back property line, it pushes that corner in the northeast all the way up against that side fence. It would move us into this area.
But you can, instead of it being
if
this
I
way,
can.
just cock it this way. Yes, you're going to take out the edge of your larger green lawn, I assume. But,
So these are all large trees, very large trees.
okay.
And just so I'm clear, the rear of the property is that block wall.
Is a block wall, yes.
And so how, between that back corner and the block wall, how much, is it 5 feet or, I'm trying
That will be 12 feet. Between the back corner of the building and where the property line sits in the back would be 12 feet at this point.
and is the block wall along the property line?
The block wall is on this side, on my side of the property line by essentially, they call it 1.9 feet, so we'll
Okay, so it'll be like, let's say 10 feet in between the block wall and the corner of the building?
essentially 10 feet between the wall and the building,
Okay,
which was what I was seeking for. The original setback in the back was moving to 10 feet instead of 15. So what came to light today with the new survey is that there's actually more space there as far as the property line is concerned.
can I ask Commissioner Michelson one more question?
Yes?
Director Williams, if we were to approve the variance tonight, would we need to make an amendment to the motion as it currently stands? How would we go about doing that? Or I understand, I'm sorry, the agenda item. Would we need to make any kind of, or just would we form up a motion given the current requirements that he needs?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Smith, I think at a minimum, we would need some sort of a condition that necessitates an updated site plan that, from a licensed survey company that,
Sure.
that shows the information, represents the testimony and the information that's been presented here.
Sure.
I think also it would be cleaner or cleanest for us to re-advertise the request because of the
Sure.
considerable changes that have been made to that.
Okay,
But in my opinion, it doesn't make sense to grant approval and then turn around and have to advertise.
yeah,
If you're
understood.
following me.
Okay, thank you.
If I might add one thing, I mean, the majority of us in here live in the village. Our community, at least in our small section, you guys are well aware of the complications we've had on Pueblo Solano. We have been pretty laid back and quiet and easygoing about the complications that we're suffering with down there. I'm asking for 3 feet. And we're talking about a road that has commercial access and egress on it now. I'm not asking for the world. What I'm looking for is being able to get comfortable in the place that I live for now and us do a little bit of to and from and give and go. I'm not asking for a ton. Again, you guys are well aware, those of us that do live in the village, the current complications that are going on my specific street. We're talking 3 houses away, essentially. I'm asking for 3 feet. That's it. I would love to move forward. Winter is coming. Crime is up. I want to get my stuff inside and safe.
Any other questions from the commissioners?
I'm just asking, I'm taking a look at one of the pictures you've got in your own
Yeah,
packet.
absolutely.
That picture. Okay. And I see where the current garage is.
Yes, ma'am?
So the new, according to reflections from your drawing there,
Obviously not to scale because that was done with colored
Certainly,
pencil, sure.
certainly, there appears to be plenty of room, you may have to take out that little tree, to put that garage in and perhaps cut back a little bit of the foliage and limbs on
So-
this one side.
I had Dupree's trees out last week. We spent like $3,000 getting this pruned up, and we brought it way back. Because as you can see in some of the pictures, it's actually grown into the existing garage. So what is starting to happen on this side of the tree and this side of this tree is some of what's going to be accomplished in taking this down is freeing up root space so that these trees stay healthy. So that was some of the consideration in what just happened this past week with the prunings. was to decide what we can do. I asked if we could take the whole thing back 8 feet in every direction essentially, because it's even hard to grow turf. The tree is enormous. But in doing so, it could damage the tree, and we're choosing not to do that.
Any other questions from the commissioners? Is there any motion?
Given the extraordinary effort that has been made to reduce any need for a variance, and given the additional information that we have, I move that we approve V2307, but that the applicant make sure that the village has all of these changes, if approved, on file.
It is a stake survey. It was done by Harris Surveying, and there are drawings. This is actually Harris Survey's preliminary drawing right here.
No, this is a motion that I'm making now.
Okay.
All right, there,
Thank you.
Commissioner Barrow has made a motion to approve. Is there a second? I'll second the motion. Any discussion from the commission? We'll move to a roll call vote. Commissioner Holman?
I'm struggling with this. I think you can do it. It wouldn't be as pretty as you want it to be, but I think you could do it. But I acknowledge it's a minor change. You have gone to extraordinary effort to get this done. And you are trying to save as much foliage as possible. I will go ahead and support this.
Commissioner Holman, yay. Commissioner Barrow?
Yay.
Commissioner Smith?
Yes.
Commissioner Martinez?
I'm in the same situation. I'm in the same situation as you are, and I think I agree with you. Moving it forward 3 feet is the way to go from our point, because we're zoning and we are administrative, and this is what we're here for. But we truly understand, as you're defining the other side, which is the needs. So I will also say yes.
Commissioner Michelson, yes. The motion carries unanimously. Let the record show public hearing item 4B, the request by Eric Uter, is formally closed. I do want to make sure in the records that you are required to follow up with Commissioner Williams, and that he will report back that all of the things that you said are met and are within conformance. Yes, Commissioner Williams.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry to interrupt. Is it possible to modify what I'll call that condition so that we establish a timeline, say within 30 days or within 45 days or whatever the commission feels is appropriate, so that we've got a deadline associated with the submittal of that updated site plan?
She's got to modify her.
Before amending my, excuse me, before amending my motion, what is an appropriate period of time that you could agree to?
As stated today by the surveying company, I should have my drawing in hand, aside from this one, the one under this, or that drawing specifically, within 2 weeks. And it was a stake survey, so there's actually physical evidence on ground that can be verified at any point in time.
Okay, so
So-
30 days would not be,
30 days should be more than
onerous.
reasonable.
I amend my motion to include 30 days.
Okay, the motion has been modified. Is there any change in the commissioners' votes? Then let the record show that the public hearing, the motion carries unanimously, it's approved. Let the record show the public hearing item 4B, the request by Eric Hunter for approval is formally closed. I want to thank all the attendees for coming. We'll move now to old business. There is no old business. New business, we're reporting 2 commissioner resignations, Karen Christensen and Dan Gay. Planning Department report. There's no department report. Mr. Williams, is that correct?
Mr. Chairman, that's correct.
We'll move now to the commissioners' informal discussion. Are there any reports or information that any of the commissioners would like to share or discuss?
I have a question. Do we know when Commissioner Rubin will be back?
Mr. Chair and Commissioner Barrow, she is coming back on October 30th.
Oh, okay, thank you.
At halftime, right?
She will be half-time that week and then full-time the following.
okay, full-time.
So she'll be back for your November meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments or questions?
I would just think, because our temporary director is probably going to be gone at that point, right? Or are you permanent on staff and you've stepped up? I'm sorry, I'm ignorant to what your true position is it permanent or is this a temporary assignment?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Holman, I'll let the administrator explain.
Yes, Mr. Chair and Commissioners, we're very lucky that Brennan Williams has agreed to stay on.
Oh, excellent.
So that we have a little bit of transition as Director Rubin gets up to snuff and gets her feet under her. And, Brennan is coming out of retirement, so we're not going to work him too hard, but we're really grateful that he's staying on with us, at least temporarily.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Williams.
Thank you.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Commissioners can leave.
Thank you.
It's 7:40.
7:48.
7:48.
Oh.